do you know, that is just what the group of 9 happy cyclists did. The meeting place was a hotel in Pragerstrasse, or Prague Street, in Dresden. As well as sampling cafe and cooking, several days were spent wandering city streets and picking up the touring bicycles and panniers that had been hired. Departing Dresden for Prague was easy. It was simply a matter of rolling the bikes onto a train bound for Prague. Prague is another beautiful, charming and romantic city. At the time, lots of other visitors thought so too, despite it being the second week of September and supposedly near the end of the tourist season. Elegant buildings abound, as do bridges, castles, churches and restaurants with superb cuisine. After several days in Prague, the 9, astride 7 bikes and 2 e-bikes, joined the Moldau or Vltava River at Stevensbridge and headed downstream on a sealed cycle path.
I beg your pardon. Did you say e-bikes? Oh yes, that would show that participation in the cycle tour was open to all comers. The sealed riverside cycle path downstream from Prague is flat. Well, mostly flat. There is that monstrous uphill to get to the village of Klekani. What a shame for the 7 touring bike riders that there is no cafe in the village. Going without a morning coffee after such a climb must have been tough. What a thrill to see, at the end of the day, the hilltop city of Melnik getting closer and closer. The cycle path becoming a dirt track as it approaches the ferry pier on the Elbe River. Fitting 9 fully laden bikes onto that tiny ferry must have been a bit of a squash. What was the focus of attention during that ferry trip across the river to Melnik? Was it the wide expanse of water where the Moldau joins the Elbe? Or was it Melnik's dominant Renaissance chateau? And there is that stunning view of the confluence of the 2 rivers. The centrally located hotel would have been so convenient, and I dare say the cuisine in that restaurant at the city square would have been highly appreciated after the first day's cycling.
The town of Rudnici nad Labem was a delightful place to eat lunch. The cafe terrace overlooked the town square and afforded views of the various and impressive church and local government buildings that surrounded the square. The route proceeded through unfenced farmland, grassy meadows, woods, quaint villages, and the occasional city. Overnight accommodation was in hotels, and evening meals invariably featured superb cuisine and local wines and beers. The river valley gradually became narrower, the Elbe winding its way between steep slopes. The border into Germany was crossed on the 3rd day, and the route entered the Elbe sandstone area, with its mountainous national parks. The stylized E, Elbe Radweg sign, became apparent and frequent. Some of the group had hiked through this area in the weeks before the rendezvous in Dresden, and many of the locations and sites were familiar. To the right, views of Die Bastei-Brücke, the Bastei Bridge, over which the hikers had rambled, was visible. That was a sign that it was not far from Dresden, and a trace of excitement at entering that city, this time by bicycle, became quietly apparent.
Was the late start from Pirna a consequence of a magnificent evening meal in an ancient cellar? Regardless of that, the short ride to Dresden would have allowed some more time to wander the streets of that beautiful city. From war-torn rubble to the recently completed reconstruction of the Frauenkirche, the city has been restored to an elegant city of past and present music. Dresden signifies the departure of the Elbe River from its route through winding valleys and sandstone cliffs, and the entry into an ever-widening river valley. Stunning natural scenery will be replaced by streetscapes through historic, quaint villages. The Semperoper, that impressive opera house, hosts performances that have enthralled audiences for centuries. The two group members who listened to Floria Tosca's thrilling story there would have indeed been enthralled. Standing as an icon of Dresden and the reconciliation of two one-time warring nations is the Frauenkirche. As well as being a venue for musical performances, it is open for visitors, and the view from the dome displays an elegant city and far-stretching countryside.
There are, of course, reminders of Dresden's location behind the former Iron Curtain, but the majority of the buildings and streetscapes are reminders of Dresden's place as a government, musical and religious centre. Equally impressive is the nearby Baroque Zwinger Palace, with its picture-perfect gardens that visitors can view from above while strolling along wide aerial promenades. The palace now houses museums and galleries and hosts lavish musical concerts.
Hidden among the imposing structures are modern businesses and, most importantly for the team, restaurants and cafes. For the 9 adventurers, cycling into Dresden along the Elbe to the Augustus Bridge would have been almost like cycling into a hometown, as they would have known where to go to get to the hotel on Pragerstrasse and then where to dine. Surely we can assume the 9 also sampled more Kaffee und Kuchen.
A short ride from Dresden was Meissen, home of Meissen pottery and home to a cafe selling particularly tasty ice cream in large bowls. Of course, stacks of pottery could have been purchased by group members during the visit to the Pottery Museum and shop, but for the lack of a safe storage space in touring bike panniers. The route was predominantly flat and on sealed cycle paths, sometimes through unfenced farmland with conveniently located and fruit-laden apple trees, at other times within stone-throwing distance of the Elbe River. Villages included some with a cliff-top castle, standing as a sentinel. Indeed, a sentinel with an excellent view of the surrounding countryside. Also conveniently located were ice cafes. The one in the historic village of Belgien was in the village square, at a place where an historic stone obelisk could be easily seen. On it were trip times by horse and carriage to other towns and cities, given in hours. Yes, the huge bowls of ice cream were delicious, and certainly welcome in the midday heat, as were the other snacks consumed for lunch. The North Saxony capital, Torgau, has a restored town square and the Renaissance Hartenfels Castle, which still keeps brown bears in a deep, dry, grassy moat. Martin Luther consecrated the chapel in the castle in 1544. The town was the site of at least 2 significant moments in military history. In 1760, a Prussian army defeated a much larger Austrian army in what became known as the Battle of Torgau. Then, in 1945, American and Russian armies met as they marched across Germany from different directions on a day now remembered as Elbe Day. Such items of history may well have been discussed over that sumptuous meal in the brewery in a narrow street just off the town square. The group rolled on to Lutherstadt Wittenberg to enjoy a fabulous Italian meal in a street-side restaurant, all the while watching floodlights take over from sunlight to illuminate towers and tall buildings. The city takes its name from Martin Luther and his leadership of the Protestant Reformation. As the route crossed the Elbe at various places, rolling bikes onto ferries became quite a normal, everyday activity. Some of the ferries were small pedestrian boats. Others also carried cars, and bikes were simply parked on the rails on each side of the craft. Some ferry stops also included irresistible coffee stop cafes. Apparently Magdeburg likes cyclists. The sign describes cyclists as the ones who ride past traffic jams, and mentioned that it is great to be a cyclist. The city was a lunch stop, with a little time to look at some of its attractions.
A cloudy midday entry into Tangermünde provided time to explore this historic town. In 1617, the town was destroyed by fire, apparently lit by Greta Minder. As a consequence, she was burned at the stake in 1619. Subsequent investigations by historians have shown that Greta could not have been the arsonist, and she has subsequently become an icon of the town. After the fire, the town was reconstructed with half-timbered houses, many of which form Tangermünde's present streetscape. Beyond Hamburg, the group used the town of Stade as a base to complete the journey. The final kilometres were through coastal plain fields alongside the Elbe, which at this stage had become a wide shipping route between Hamburg and the North Sea. For the adventurers, the journey from Prague to Cuxhaven was a trip through landscapes, time and cultures, supported by sumptuous regional cuisines and drinks. I wonder if the cuisine and drinks will become the enduring memory of the journey.